Hey, my Perry family, it's JP Freeman once again, and we're back here on Tuesday at the Classic Rock Coffee Company in Springfield, Missouri. And today we have Jonathan, who's the master barista here at Classic Rock, and he's going to demonstrate for us a magical pour over of the whatever blends. So, Jonathan, what blend are you doing today?
I'm actually using our select offering, is what we call it. It's something that we kind of do a small batch roast of that we'll have for a week, maybe 2 weeks. Something fresh that we can have as an additional option for pour overs or espresso. So it's just something that's kind of seasonal and something different to try. But basically, I've got this all set up here. Everything you'd need for this whole setup. So I've got ground coffee in there. I don't know if you can necessarily see that in there or not, but some ground coffee. It's pretty close to a medium grind on this. I have my hot water, my V60 filter, using the Hario V60 pour over setup. My acrylic stand, a little decanter pitcher to catch the coffee, and then I have my scale down here so I can weigh all my coffee and water and everything. We want to make sure and do this pour over the same way every time, so that's why we're going to measure everything out to the decimal point and try to get as close as possible every time. So I'll just kind of go through this and just kind of talk about what I'm doing as I go. The pour over is kind of a good way to get people interested in coffee. It's also what I'll start with in training. It helps new, less experienced coffee people understand grind settings and flow rate. Like your end yield compared to your starting coffee volume and all those things. So basically, I'll just kind of go through and show you what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
So I have my paper filter here. It's a fairly thick filter, and that's awesome because it'll filter out all the fats and acids in the coffee. That's what's going to make coffee better. So people that drink a pour over want a more clean tasting cup of coffee rather than an oily compared to, say, a French press. It's going to be really full bodied and oily. Some people like that, but if you want something more clean tasting, less bitter, you could go with the pour over. So one of the most important steps here is going to be to pre-wet your filter. That's going to get rid of that weird papery kind of minerally taste. And since I'm using such hot water, it's also going to preheat this whole contraption. Because I'm making a warm drink, I want it to be, nice and warm in the end. If I don't do this part, it'll shock the coffee. It'll lose, 10 degrees or more, and it'll also taste like paper, kind of that minerally sort of weird smell. So I definitely want to get rid of that. So I'm going to pour this water out now. Get rid of all that. So now this is pre-wet, it's warmed, and my filter is kind of locked in place. As you can see, it's not going anywhere with the, you can see the ridges along the side. It'll give that natural kind of vortex when it goes to brew. So my next step is I'm going to put in my ground coffee. I have 22 grams of Costa Rica Las Lajas. That's what we have right now as our second hopper, as we call it. Our additional options for coffee. So pour the dry coffee in. And you can see it in there. It's not it doesn't look like a whole lot, but for a 12-ounce drink, that's going to be quite a lot of coffee. So you just want to shake that out, kind of get it nice and level. What I'm doing is getting ready to do the what's called the bloom. That's the first amount of water that you pour in over the coffee, just enough to saturate it. It will degas the coffee with it being such fresh roast. It's going to degas, or also kind of have that carbonated sort of flavor, almost make the sides of your tongue go numb. So you don't really want that. We want to give it at least 30 seconds to sit here and soak. And that's kind of also the foundation of the rest of my brew. So if I don't, if I pour too much water in this part, the rest of my brew will be kind of diluted as I go. So we're going to do about 50 grams of water over this, and I'm measuring this on my scale here. I don't know that you'll be able to see that, but I'm just going to start right down the middle, pour nice and slow, give myself time to work all the way out, trying to hit the coffee as evenly as possible. I'm at 47.5, so I'm just going to go with that. Let it sit for about 30 seconds. My scale here is counting up, so again, this is going to degas the coffee. It's going to make it nice and clean tasting. and it's also saturating the coffee, so when I go to pour the rest of my water over it, it's all going to release at once, rather than if I just poured water over it, it would have to battle through different air pockets and dry coffee, and so I just want to make sure and give this enough time to sort of soak here. I'm at 25 seconds.
Hello.
So I'm just gonna go ahead and start. I'm at 30. So we do the pulse pour method. So we just start right down the middle, and you can sort of see this coffee kind of volumize up a little. All these bubbles, that's just flavor basically. And when I start, I want to really focus on the middle, about dime-sized circles. I'm just going to create that natural cone shape in my coffee bed. This cone brews the coffee so the water will hit the coffee evenly. It kind of gets a spin going to it. And you want the deepest part of your coffee bed to be right down the center, so you know it's brewing straight down. And gravity is your biggest tool in this, other than water. You're just pouring enough water about 2 inches up in the cone. You don't want to pour too much water too quickly, because it'll separate the coffee and actually wash it out. So if you pour too fast, you'll kind of get a block on the bottom of this filter, and it'll basically prevent your coffee from brewing. So you just want to pour nice and slow, really consistent pour. You get about 2 inches up, just stop for a second, let it brew. And then once you see about empty, go ahead and pour your next amount of water. And the overall weight of this drink, water weight, is going to be 400 grams. That's just shy of 12 ounces. So you just kind of keep going with it until you get that desired amount. And again, just the key to this is not pouring too much water or pouring too fast. If I poured all my water in and it got way up to the top, you'd see sort of these different coffee particles kind of floating, in the water. That's not brewing it; it's all separated, so you're just getting just like a washed out, diluted coffee. We want to avoid that as much as possible. And we're shooting for about 3 minutes on this, 3 to 3.5 minutes. And we're getting really close here. I'm at 3:41. Alright, there we go. So basically at this point, you just let the gravity do the rest of the work. It's going to pull this water through the coffee evenly. It'll create a nice clean taste. The amount of coffee we use with the amount of water, you're basically making a concentration. So when we test this, or as we call it, dial in our pour overs, we use a tool called a refractometer that will actually shoot light through the coffee, and that will kind of give you the TDS, the total dissolved solids, and that's basically the amount of flavor that you have in the ending drink here. So it's really nothing too complicated. You're just pouring water over ground coffee basically, but a lot of people don't realize this process. So if you're getting new into coffee and you want to try something other than like just a regular drip pot, this is something to start with. You can really get involved with it. You have full control over the pour. You can feel the heat off of it. You can kind of smell the aromas. So it kind of gets me excited. And when people see that excitement across the counter, it really comes through. So this is a good way to kind of get people involved in their own home brewing methods, something really simple. You don't even have to weigh things if you don't want. You can just kind of practice and do different amounts of water as you go. But what you've got here in the end is your cone. That's kind of gives you the story of the whole pour. If I hit this side of the coffee more than this side, you'd see it deeper. And I think I did okay on this. It all looks pretty even, and I have that nice cone shape. The deepest part of my coffee is right down the middle here, so it looks like it's evenly extracted. And then all you have to do is drink this nice clean tasting cup of coffee here. So that's your pour over in a nutshell, basically, without getting into too many little small details on weights and things. But that's basically it.
Something that a coffee aficionado or just a regular coffee lover at home can do very easily. Now, what about French press or other methods? Is this superior for flavor extraction versus other methods?
That's definitely up to the drinker. Myself, I don't like unfiltered coffee that much. It gets kind of muddy, and I would say 10 years ago French press was the brewing method other than a drip pot at home. Probably in the last 5 to 10 years, pour overs, different things like an AeroPress or a Chemex have been coming out that you can really simple things to do, but little things like your filter and this cone just gives it that unique taste. It's going to be more of a clean taste, less bitterness. You know, it's just going to give you that more, you know, cleaner taste. Basically, is just the best way to explain it, describe it.
All right. Next thing I guess we're going to see, and for the viewers, you're probably going to want to. We're going to see your expression as you take your sip there. So.
Yeah, and this is actually how you serve this in our shop, is a little 6-ounce cappuccino cup and just your pitcher here, and you can just kind of sip on it. So you just pour it in your cup, obviously. You know, it's fairly hot, so you're going to want to let it cool for just a little bit. And this is a light roast Costa Rica, so I should get some citrusy flavors, a little bit of floral flavor, but just try it out. Oh yeah, you want to try that?
Yes,
yeah, it's really, it's got a lot of sweet flavor to it. I don't know if you can necessarily see, but there's no, sometimes you see that kind of oily sheen on the top of coffee, like on a French press. You won't see that very much in this because it's all been filtered out. So all I'm getting is that clean taste from the different flavor notes from this coffee. But that's a really sweet taste. It has a little bit of citrus kind of flavor in there, almost orangey. But if I brewed this through, say, a French press, it would be a lot more muddled on my tongue. You know, it would be heavier. This is wider, something that you can drink in the afternoon or in the evening. It's kind of just up to the drinker, and if you like this, you might like a French press, and by all means stick to the French press. But if you're looking to branch out, try something new, try the pour over. It's really simple. It also kind of gets people involved. You can show people, you know, and it's less intimidating after you see someone do it one time. So.
Among the 4 brands that you have, which one is this one that you poured over for us?
We have our 4 brands of coffee, and then we'll do a small batch roast on like some seasonal coffee. Something that's, you know, fresher you can try. We'll swap it out every 2 weeks, like we just had in Ecuador before this one. So we try to have another option for, you know, espresso or pour overs beyond the 4 house coffees that we have.
Oh, okay. All right, because you've got the Breakfast in America, you've got the Barracuda, and the others. So is this a unique?
Yeah, we call it a select offering. It's just something that you can come in one week and try it. The next week you come in, we'll have something new that we just pulled out of the roaster a couple days beforehand. It helps our employees and myself kind of expand our palate with tasting different coffees. And it also for the customer, it gives them more.
I can't get enough.
It is really good, you know. It's
that's some of the best tasting coffee in the world, right here, and this is awesome.
Yeah,
I wish the viewers could taste what I'm tasting right now. I've got fruity front. What do you call it? The fruity presence, the initial.
Yeah, it's usually in a lighter roast. You'll get more upfront flavors. Like citrus,
citrus,
just things that you taste as soon as it hits your tongue. Some coffees, like maybe a dark roast, you'll take a sip of it, takes a second, then you'll start getting that flavor. We call that back end flavors. This is just you'll taste it as soon as it hits your tongue, nice and pungent. It's a really good coffee. This is Costa Rica, Las Lajas. Costa Rica is one of my favorite origins, anyways. But this is just roasted really well. Chris and Mason roasted this just a few days ago, so it's super fresh.
Awesome, awesome.
It's delicious.
And so where can our people find you then online? Is it classicrockcoffee.com?
Yep.
Right?
That has all of our information for this shop. Also franchises that we offer is all available on classicrockcoffee.com. Menus, training videos, all different kinds of things. So definitely worth checking out if you're interested in Classic Rock at all.
Absolutely. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for taking the time and doing an expert pour over as the master barista this morning, folks. This was Jonathan here, and believe me, oh gosh, where is that? Let me have another sip of that.
You can finish this off too.
All right. Well, thanks for joining everybody, and we'll see you on the next video.